it's only going to get tougher. I think if we don't get it this year, I think every year, I think potentially just gets harder and harder.
Well, I'm going to go on record here. Cavs Warriors, Cavs in 6.
There you go. He went on the record. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are creating the Haddix's record,
we're going to be listening to this later.
We will replay this. That'll be our opening clip. Will be this last 4 or 5 minutes somewhere in there. We'll splice that clip into our opening segment for our June podcast when we're talking about our NBA Finals preview.
God, I hope you're wrong. Just I mean, go Cavs. I hope you're wrong.
Oh, seriously. Oh, dude,
man, jeez.
After you say, I know.
You guys feel free to tweet at PseudoNerdPod and call out Hougie for being a Cavs hater. Guy moves to San Francisco and joins the bandwagon over there. Let me tell you. He's probably wearing his Steph Curry jersey right now.
Even if we were to beat the Warriors and we sweep them in 4, I still say that you're wrong.
Oh, this guy backpedaling. The guy that's saying Warriors in 5 or whatever you said.
I've never seen a guy backpedal so quick. That's
not what I'm cheering for. I'm not hoping for. I'm just saying, realistically.
Dude, Hougie, are you running for president? Because you are backpedaling, my friend.
No.
Just call me Hillary Hoagland.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 22 of the Pseudo Nerd Podcast for June 3rd, 2016. I'm your podcast host, Josh Kiser, and joining me in the arena today, Mr. Josh Haddix.
Oh, I like the arena toss-out. Hey, everybody.
And a little bounce pass over to Mr. Kyle Hoagland.
Basketball jokes. What's going on?
That's right. The basketball theme is because today we are going to go ahead and preview the NBA Finals. Now it is upon us. And I'm pretty excited for it, to be honest. We'll touch base. We'll talk about the Cavs. We'll talk about the Warriors, the rematch from last year, and go through what we think, what we think about the playoffs so far, what we think about the finals matchup itself, and kind of discuss both the Warriors and LeBron's legacy and what this championship means for both of them. But before that, how are you guys? We actually are recording this earlier than normal. I'm in a hotel room as per usual as of late. But then also, I want to let people know by the time you listen to this, Game 1 will have been played. So when we give predictions, ignore the fact that we haven't seen Game 1 yet.
Hopefully they're as good as our Game of Thrones predictions, right, Kiser?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have nailed nothing other than that Jon Snow is back, so there's that.
Oh, shit.
No poop jokes today? Yeah. No poop stories? I got a couple good laughs from work about that. They were actually looking forward to in the event that we were going to bring it back this week. But I told them, hey, it's got to be organic, so don't want to have artificial poop stories.
Did you guys, does your pee smell like asparagus after you eat asparagus?
What is I don't eat vegetables.
I couldn't tell you.
So
you don't. Well, I mean, I guess you're not like the spitting image of like Mr. Veggies, so I guess I can understand that.
No, absolutely not.
But you don't eat asparagus either, Haddix?
No, I hate it.
Oh, well.
I'm a green beans kind of guy.
Same here. I'll take some green beans and some jelly beans,
Hoagie's like, I love green jelly beans.
Actually, the green jelly beans are horrible. I'm all about the red, and they all taste the same, except for the black ones. And that's not racist.
Those jelly bellies, those are
what, like the random ones where you have what's this? Oh, it's green. Oh, it's boogers. Cool.
Oh, the popcorn. Dude, the popcorn flavor jelly bellies is like the
well, it could be, as I said, it could be worse. There's a lot more gag ones. They have like pocket lint,
rotten eggs and stuff.
Isn't that usually like the theme ones for Harry Potter? Like most of those are.
Well, they have the Burt's Every Flavor Bean that came out for that, so it's a similar concept off the Jelly Belly.
Either way, gross. I'll stick to the flavors from 1940.
Tastes just like the Depression.
Just sweeter. Just a little sweeter.
Too soon, man.
Just a little sweeter.
Too soon, bro.
Too soon? Too soon on the depression?
My great grandfather? Great grandfather?
Probably, like, my grandmother was alive for the 40s, so.
Maybe, yeah, it's true.
I say my grandfather was in a concentration camp during World War II. Not there like that. He was, as a soldier, he was there to liberate one of them.
Oh, I was like, what, he's like visiting?
No, remember in freshman year we had to make those websites? And,
I mean, yes, because I had kurtanglesgod.com.
Like you can afford a .com back during the .com era. kurtanglesgod.com would have given you millions.
And millions.
And millions.
But really, guys, if you ever eat asparagus, it makes your pee smell like asparagus. It's kind of weird.
What does asparagus smell like?
Like potent? Like real? Yeah.
Oh, it's very potent. Like, you finish peeing, you're like, oh yeah, I had asparagus earlier.
Is that literally what you said to yourself? Like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I say. And then, like, tomorrow morning I'll pee again, and I'll be like, yep, had asparagus last night for dinner.
I guess my next question would have been, like, I take it you had asparagus over this Memorial Day weekend.
I mean, I had it for dinner tonight, but yes, I guess you could say that.
Fair enough.
You and the I almost said wifey, but you're not quite there yet.
Let's make it weird.
And I's level.
And go.
Oh, that's right. She does listen to this podcast.
Yeah, she actually supports. She supports us. All right.
You guys are early enough on in your relationship that she supports everything you do.
Right. Yeah, she doesn't have to tell it. She has to like lie and say she actually enjoys things.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, what? It's only funny because our wives don't do that. They support us all the time for everything we do, or they just look away and just pretend that we don't do it.
Hoagie's just digging himself out of a hole.
It could be.
You know who had to dig themselves out of a hole was the Golden State Warriors in this last series against the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Good segue. Well done. But very true statement.
But, let's just go right into it. Let's talk the playoffs. Since we're doing the Warriors first, because I think we segued in there. Was there a point when you thought, the Warriors were done?
All the way up to probably about the last 5 minutes of Game 6, I did. And then after that, I felt like, oh God, we're going to play the Warriors. Which really, I don't care. As a Cavs fan, I really didn't care who we played. I cared about home court advantage.
Well, then you did care who we played.
Well, all right, I cared.
But I agree with you there. I would have, if we would have had the choice of, like, for some reason playing the Warriors meant we had home court advantage, I would have been fine playing the Warriors for that reason too. But until in Game 6 there, I thought the Thunder were going to do it. Then they choked hard, and you knew Game 7 was going to the Warriors back home.
Yeah, to be honest with you, even though Oklahoma City was winning for probably more than 50% of that game, I'd
say probably a good 3 quarters almost they were up.
You didn't have a good feeling about it.
No, not at all.
It wasn't a big enough lead. It wasn't.
I will say I'm surprised that it wasn't a blowout because I thought Golden State was just going to come out and smash.
Oh, I did too.
Game 7.
No, I agree.
Quick,
to be honest with you.
Oh, I was just to say a quick little off-topic. Props to the Thunder, even though they choked there. They really played phenomenally. Were on the road, beat the best Spurs, the best record Spurs team of all time, and should have beaten the best Golden State Warriors, the team that had the best NBA record of all time. So they did a hell of a job.
The only reason that the Thunder did not win and the Warriors did was because Klay Thompson had a historic game. Literally an historic, made the most three-pointers ever in an NBA playoff.
Yeah, I think it was 11.
Or I'm sorry, second. I think it was second.
No, it was
and
the
most. And the first was, was it the most or the second? Because I know 1 and 2, so the first most and the second most were both in this series against Oklahoma Thunder. That's Curry and
I believe it was the most
Klay
three-pointers
Thompson.
by a single person in a playoff game, which was 11 by Klay Thompson on Game 6.
I believe so too, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, he literally single-handedly basically won this series for the Warriors because of that game. I mean, the dude went bananas. And I think they only ended up losing by, 6 or 7?
I think it was, 107 to 101 or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, he went on a historic, I think he scored 40 plus points, 30 plus points, something like that. And and they only won by 6. So, I mean, yeah, you take away 2 of those 3-pointers that he made. Like,
that's some good math skills you got going on there.
You like that? You like that?
Who said public schools you couldn't get a good education?
Right. But anyways, the Warriors did win that. They're in the finals. They have home court advantage. They have momentum if you buy into that. What do you make, Kyle, of Golden State's playoff run?
I feel like they even said at the very beginning that they may have been potentially maybe a little bit tired physically and mentally. Curry had a kind of a bit of a scare with that sprained MCL. He came back and basically scored 40 points in the game he came back. So I'm at this point, being from the Bay Area now, and hearing like sports radio over here, they're already generating every excuse for every series they've had where they had to go through all these tumultuous, scenarios and, how the Cavs had it so much easier. And if the Cavs were to win, they understand why, because they now feel that they're not 100% going into the finals, where my whole opinion is if you're on the floor, then you're good enough to play. And there's no excuse.
He scored 40 in his game back. He put up 17 in overtime of that game. He's fine. I mean, he's maybe not 100%.
But no one is. No one's 100%.
Exactly. At this time of year, nobody's 100%. I don't want to hear that as an excuse whatsoever. As far as who had an easier path, I'll give the Warriors, the Oklahoma City Thunder, were a much tougher matchup than the Raptors. But the Rockets and Blazers were terrible. The Rockets were bad, like really bad, like should not have made the playoffs bad. That was an easy go through. One that they didn't win all 5, they didn't win. It took a 5-game series. And then they played a Blazers team that's very young, inexperienced, who had beat the Clippers who didn't have anybody left. They beat that series in 5 games as well. So those first 2 rounds, I would argue the Cavs had a tougher first 2 rounds than the Warriors did.
And that's to say that the Cavs didn't lose a single game, but really, the Pistons and the Hawks, and definitely I would say the Pistons more than anybody, that was actually a pretty good series considering that the Cavs swept it.
It was probably the closest sweep that you could say you've seen.
Right. they gave the Cavs their best. And obviously when you look at it from history and see it's 4-0, you make it seem like, they got wiped out. But honestly, if you watch the games, it really wasn't that. It really didn't start looking just like embarrassing basketball until probably the latter end of the Hawks, and then the Raptors series was just, one team won by 20, the other one won by 20. It was actually really embarrassing.
It was like home court advantage was such a big deal in that series. But when the Raptors had home court, it was like they would win. They had like a lead, and then the Cavs could just never catch up. But I never felt like the Cavs were out of it. Where like the Raptors in Cleveland, you never felt like they were in it.
Yeah, I guess I can give you that. I'll be honest. I only watched one of the away games. For the Raptors.
Because you're like
season.
A Warriors fan now. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're watching all those games.
Yeah, exactly. He's a bandwagon.
Dub City.
He's like, I watched all those Golden State games.
I actually did not watch any of them until game 6 and 7 of the Thunder, because I just assumed that the Warriors was going to steamroll. So at that point, at the beginning, the Warriors are just like, I'll watch SportsCenter to see if they won, but I wasn't watching the basketball games. But I was interested in the Raptors series towards the end, just because of the narrative for that was just, if the Cavs are going to go into the West and beat whoever it would have been, the Thunder or the Warriors, they had to look better. And I think I'm just sick and tired of like just national sports media sometimes, where it doesn't matter how good you are. If you have one bad game, they're going to rip the team to shreds about it. Like it doesn't matter who you are. If you're on a LeBron James team and you just like beat the crap out of the Raptors 2 straight games at home, and then you go to Toronto and you're expected to not have to go back to Cleveland. And then they find out, they're going to have to go back to Cleveland, and everyone's thinking like, oh man, the Cavs have no chance to beat anybody in the West if they're having this much of a trouble beating the Raptors. Like that seems like just a really kind of a shot in the dick to the Raptors, who really,
it was definitely a slap to the Raptors.
Which I understand they have like basically 2 players, but I mean they got the second best record. They only were just under the Cavs by like what, a game or 2.
It was a couple of games there, and I mean they won. Yes, the East is easier, but at the end of the day, they won 2 7-game series to make the Eastern Conference Finals. They're not gonna, they finished with the second best record in the East, and these other teams that the Warriors beat, guess what? In the regular season, the Raptors beat all those teams. So I don't want to hear it that it was just some pushover. At the end of the day, you're playing playoff basketball. It's not going to be a walk in the park. What the Cavs did, winning their first 10, that had only been done like 3 times in NBA history. So
right. So then why is it that when I turn into like ESPN, like they're making it seem like okay, they lost 2 games in Toronto, and now they're just all it is just a bunch of doomsayers being like, there's no way that they're going to beat anybody coming out of the West, especially if it was the Thunder. I mean, we played the Thunder like 3 times during the regular season, and we beat them all 3 times.
Yeah, we played the Thunder really well, and I mean the narratives are what they are, and that's you can't fault the national media. They'll do whatever they can to stir up controversy. They read Eric Bischoff's book, so
I hear it creates cash.
Good toss out there.
It sure does. And yet when the Warriors start fumbling, it's not, oh my God, is this going to be a collapse? It's, Steph Curry might be still hurt.
Or it's just, they make put a positive spin on it. They'd be like, okay, well, what can the Warriors do to come back from this? Where if it's the Cavs, there's like, they're just, one more collapse away from never having a chance in the series. It's just, it's a different headline depending on who you talk to. And you would think that with how much LeBron has been kind of the banner waver, for so long, that he would get at least some benefit of the doubt. But because of his history in the finals, being 2-4 in the finals, that it's just, this is just going to be another time for everybody to like really look at his career under a magnifying glass in a negative way.
Oh yeah, I mean he'll be scrutinized. So let's move into the finals itself. Then we'll talk about the matchup with these two. Obviously, the big story is it is a rematch from last year's finals. It's also one that if you listen to our episode 7 podcast where we we gave our preview of the NBA going forward from the All-Star break. It's one that we all pretty much predicted is going to be the finals. There were some hopeful thoughts that maybe the Spurs would get in there. Little we know that the Spurs wouldn't even make it to the Western Conference Finals. But here we are, rematch for 2015, but we got some differences this year. Haddix, what stands out to you as a difference from this year's finals to last year's?
I think the big one, like you guys and everyone else will agree, is that the Cavs are healthy. 2 of our big 3, if you will, are actually playing this year, and they were not playing last year. So, that's a huge swing right there. And I honestly think with them 2 healthy, this is probably the best Cavs team that we've seen in the LeBron era, at least.
Hands down in the LeBron era, it's the best,
so,
yeah. You could argue it's the best Cavs team of all time. It's right up there.
Yeah. And, we don't need to get into that, but definitely the best LeBron era team. So, we have health on our side this year. Knock on wood, hopefully nothing happens in like game 1 or something like that, but,
which is what happened last year to Kyrie.
Well, yeah. So that's by far the big difference maker right there is we have a healthy Cavs team, a team that, what did LeBron get us 2 wins last year basically by himself? Didn't it go to Game 6 last year?
Yes.
Yeah,
it did. It went to 6 last year.
So, let's see what he can do with a healthy team and a better team than last year. So.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it healthy, which is obviously, you have Kyrie. I mean, LeBron said this in his post-game interview last year after the finals was over. He said, I don't know any other team that ever made the finals when they're missing 2 of their all-stars. And I mean, that was it. Kyrie and Kevin Love were gone for it. So what they did with a 7-man rotation, you had James Jones playing 30-plus minutes, and Mozgov was doing the same thing. Now, granted, Mozgov, I think, had a much better season last year than he was doing this year. But still, those guys were playing 30-plus minutes. This year, they don't see the court unless you're blowing the team out. So, I mean, you have Channing Frye and Richard Jefferson playing significant minutes, doing a lot for the team. Frye has been... I remember we talked about this at the All-Star Break podcast because it was right when the trade was made, which actually is a quick point we can make there too. But we said, at best, Frye will see the court, something that his counterpart, Anderson Varejao, was not doing. So we thought he might make a little bit of an impact. He's made a huge impact.
Oh, he's big.
Well, also, I mean, last year, Varejao was hurt. I think it was just easier to let go of him just because they were used to not needing him or using him. So it was just easier to deal him.
We didn't really use him at all this year. He wasn't in a ton.
He is not as bad, but like a Ben Wallace. He hustles on defense, and he would hustle on offense, for rebounds and stuff. But he's a slight offensive liability. Like he can't score on his own. You know what I mean? Like if LeBron drives
when
and
he
pulls
scores, it's awkward.
Well, if you're comparing it to Ben Wallace, Ben Wallace was probably like a 9 on defense and like a 3 on offense, whereas like Varejao was probably like a 5 on offense and like a 7 on defense.
But like I'm saying, it's an offensive liability. To whereas if you have Frye out there instead, you put that dude at the 3-point line. I mean, he's making those, so you have to respect that. Like you can't just leave him free at the 3-point line. So,
and speaking of Anderson Varejao. He's in a good position right now. The guy's gonna get a ring no matter what happens in this finals because he was traded.
That's true because he started on the Cavs.
He was traded and now he's with the Warriors. So if the Warriors win, he gets a ring. And if he
that's awesome.
If he loses and the Cavs win, he can still get a ring.
Well, I mean, he can still get one, and that's up to Dan Gilbert to give him one.
Right, and I mean, typically they do that. But if you're Anderson Varejao, let's say the team does offer one, because let's be honest, if Andy was on any other team right now, other than the Warriors, and the Cavs won it all, like, I think he would accept the ring as like, almost like a sacrifice. The guy had been there, was there last year, was there in 2007, had been there through the post-LeBron era. And for him to sit through all that, like, I think it would have been like, yeah, that's, I appreciate that. It's nice. I wish I could have been there with you guys, but, he wasn't. But now you're here, and let's say the Cavs do win, and you're on the losing end of that finals. Do you want a ring from the team that just beat you?
If you're asking me, or are you asking if as speaking for him? If I'm speaking for Andy, I say yeah, I would take it because I think it's still in a way a culmination to the time that you were as a player for the Cavs, and after that letter he wrote and how much he really never really wanted to leave. He wanted to retire here. This was basically his home. Obviously we're watching him, and it's sometimes hard to see it. Him jumping up and down and high-fiving Steph Curry. There's almost like a small part of you that feels betrayed, even though that's a selfish feeling to have, but it's there just because I don't know. I was listening to Bull and Fox, wrote a radio station for Cleveland sports radio, and Dustin was talking about how like he almost feels like he's a traitor, even though he shouldn't feel that way. But there's like he can't help feel like that Anderson Varejao is a traitor.
Tradee.
This guy over here with his, but yeah, you're right. He was a tradee. Didn't he go to Portland and then he got released?
Correct. Yeah, it was one of those like trading cuts ordeal for you.
Which that's got to be a hit to your ego when like 3 years ago you were an all-star. Or 2 years ago, I think. I think he was an all-star.
I don't know if he was ever an all-star.
Yeah, he made the all-star team. He was the only guy from the Cavs that made it that year. He had a really good year in like 2013.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been a good player, but his injuries have been the biggest thing to plague him. But as far as, like, I don't know, like, I don't think of him, when I see him over there, like, even though I just don't think about him really anymore, which is, like,
I don't
terrible to say, but I don't. I watched him he had a few significant minutes played the other night. I don't know if it was it might have been game 6. Or possibly it was 7. But
the last game he came in for only like 4 minutes for Klay Thompson, and yeah, he had
he took an offensive foul, he made a shot, he got a rebound, had an assist or something like.
Right, he almost had like one of everything for like the 4 minutes he was on the court, and then when he got subbed out, like the crowd gave him a good round. Yeah,
I mean it was a great substitution when he was in, so that's fine. I'll be like annoyed to see him out there taking offensive charges, like if he does that during this finals, if he sees much of the court.
Do you think LeBron approaches him and like gives him a hug before the game starts or anything? Do you think we'll see that at all?
I mean, I'm sure he will. He'll do something like that. They were boys. It'd be more curious to see how Varejao responds to it all. If he gives him the old Mo Williams treatment.
You might have to indulge me and the listeners on what the Mo Williams treatment is.
So Mo Williams back when LeBron was first year with the Heat, Mo felt betrayed like the fans did. So, when they first met up that year, all the Cavs players are running over, hugging LeBron, this and that. LeBron came up to like hug Mo, and Mo just walked right by him, like totally dissed him because he was like pissed off about it. Got a lot of respect in the Cleveland fan base. Other national people thought it was a dick move on Mo's part, but Mo was hurt.
I mean it's a business thing. Yeah, and I don't blame him for being, but yeah, whatever. That's a topic for another day, I guess.
Right. So we kind of talked about what's different with the Cavs going into this. Kyle, you being the West Coast guy, what is different about this Warriors team from last year's finals matchup?
Well, they've got a lot more confidence and cockiness to them. That's for damn sure. So they're going into this with 100% confidence that they've already played their finals. So to them, the Cavs are just in the way. I mean, they're going to give a little more respect than that. But I believe last year, as good as the Warriors were, I think that it might have been a little bit more, even though Love was injured, I think people were still thinking that maybe this team wasn't ready yet to take that next step, and that, LeBron will, will his way to a championship for Cleveland. It didn't happen that way. Now we're going into this year with an even better squad, a better record, more expectation. So, everybody here was waiting for 4 more games. And that's kind of what was kind of discussed during our midway, preview podcast, was that everybody out here is just assuming that back in February they were just waiting for June and waiting for their trophy.
Yeah, they're definitely playing with swagger, though I do think that Thunder series humbled them a little bit, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think the way it ended, I think they were humbled until Game 6, and then they got all cocky at the end of that. Went back to their home court, and I think that they're riding high right now, which might suck for us. Like they might come into this, this finals matchup feeling real good, which could hurt. But I think they're as cocky. I can't stand them. I can't stand Golden State Warriors. I can't stand everyone. I'm okay with Klay, but I cannot stand that whole team.
That's funny. I don't like Klay Thompson either.
I mean, I think he's one of the only ones on there that is semi. Don't get me wrong. He gets excited sometimes, like anyone playing in a playoff game would. But he's not. I don't know what it is, but like Draymond Green is the worst.
Well, Draymond Green should have been suspended already and should have missed a game, and it hasn't been. It's total bullshit.
It is. I just can't stand Golden State Warriors, and maybe it's because I'm a Cavs fan. I don't know how I would feel if I lived in another state. I think it's more that we're in the playoffs, but
it's more that we're Cavs fans. I mean, they took something.
Yeah,
from us,
I mean, Draymond.
So we're going to feel kind of angry about it
nationwide.
But I mean, I never felt this way when I mean, I didn't like the Celtics back when we couldn't get past the Celtics, but I never disliked them this much. I disliked their team in general. I never hated Kevin Garnett. I mean, maybe during the series, I was like, oh god, that dude sucks. But I never hated the Spurs when we lost to the Spurs. Like,
I don't think anybody hates the Spurs.
Or I just
people hate playing the Spurs.
I've never disliked a team. Like they're just so cocky and arrogant. I hate them.
Well, they went 73-9 in the regular season, NBA best record all time. It's all for nothing if they don't win, right?
It becomes their record becomes forgettable if they don't finish it.
I think it almost becomes a like a burn on them. Like you'll always talk about, God, that team that
like the 18-1 Patriots.
Record.
They were undefeated and then lost the Super Bowl.
It almost becomes, if they don't set a record and don't win, it's just they didn't make it. Like the Cavs have done many times. But yeah, if you get that record and don't make it, it almost becomes a bad thing.
But the difference is between them and Cleveland sports is that if they lose, it's not chronicled in the history of failures. I mean, they are the defending champions. It's very hard to repeat. If they lose, they lose. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and that it'll be remembered as being a disappointing season. But if the Cavs lose, I think that is more chronicled in the annals of sports history, just because A, it's LeBron, B, it's Cleveland. So you combine those things together.
I think it's chronicled to us. I don't know if someone that lives in Oklahoma or not California, because that's who we're playing, and basically any other team in a few years doesn't care. Like, But if Golden State loses, basketball fans in general will always remember because of the record.
I agree with that. I was going to say something similar. I don't think the Cavs losing is going to mean anything other than it's going to affect LeBron's legacy big time.
Yes, yeah. And us Cavs fans.
Right, us personally, sure. But
well, I mean, it's the same year that we have when ESPN releases that Believe Land. So it just puts stuff in much more just focus. Like the people that may not have like sports fans that may not truly grasp the I guess just the history of like the past 30 years of Cleveland sports, or even 40 years, they know now. And so this year more than ever, that this failure, not only is it going to be a celebration for, the Bay Area, for the Warriors if they win, but for the whole country, it's just more the same with Cleveland. And it's just, to this point, it's not funny anymore. It's now, there's been multiple documentaries about it. ESPN did the 30 for 30 just last week, or like a couple weeks ago, about it. So it's just the timing. It just seems like this needs to be the time that the Cavs win, or else it's just more of the same misery that everybody now knows and is well comfortable with, knowing the history of at this point.
So LeBron is 2-4 in the finals. You can almost take one of those losses off because that was 2007, where it's almost a victory that he made it there with that team. I mean, Daniel Marshall, Larry Hughes, and the rest.
CJ Miles,
Drew Gooden.
Hey, don't you hit Drew Gooden?
But anyways, he loses. If he lost this one, he goes to 2-5 in the finals. There was a stat I heard that no MVP has ever lost 5 finals, but there's something that could be said for a guy that's made it to 7 finals in his career.
I was about to say, yeah.
That's part of it. It's one of those John Elway sort of things. Like, Elway has a lot of Super Bowl losses. Jim Kelly has a lot of Super Bowl losses, but they made it to the big show. So, there's something to be said in that regard. Then there's the argument that the East is easy. I don't care. It's playoff basketball. You won your side. Yes, he had an easier route than some other teams have had going through the West. But at the end of the day, he's taken a team to 6 straight finals with the help of James Jones. To me, I think losing hurts him. Obviously, it will hurt his legacy. He starts to get critiqued. He's already won 2 though, so you can't say that he can't win the big one. It's not one of those things. He starts to be maybe talked more like Peyton Manning. But for me, if LeBron can win and beat what was the greatest single season NBA team and bring a championship to Cleveland, I mean, those 2 things right there are 2 like huge storylines in their own right. To bring them both at the same time, I think that could cement him. That right there would be a bigger deal than the 2 championships he's already won, and a much, much bigger deal than the 4 losses he's had in the finals.
I agree with everything you said. If he beats the Warriors this year, the 3 finals that he will have won if he wins this year, he would have beaten the Spurs, the Thunder, and the Warriors. Those are the big 3 out west. So he could say that he's beaten all the good teams in the West, so that would negate anyone saying the East is easier. I mean, it is, but he still beat the best teams of the West.
Other than Kobe's Lakers, but they never got a chance.
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. He never really got a chance. So, I mean, he could say that, and I agree with you. He's brought a championship to a city that hasn't had one in a long time. I honestly don't think it matters. I don't think, not that nothing matters if they win this year, but the rest of his career, I think he could coast, and it would still be like one of the greatest careers ever. If he could win this year.
If he can win one for the land.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, they could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and lose, or the Finals and lose. And I mean, other than it being disappointing and all that, I still think it would be a great career.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this win this year would be bigger than had they won last year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, let's kind of, we'll go into our prediction side of things, but we can kind of talk matchups too while we're in here. Kyle, what is the key? What is the key for you in this series? I mean, like, what's the number one thing for either one side or the other that you think could be the difference maker in this series?
I think it's going to be very similar to what it was like last year, where I think that the big players they're going to get their points. They're going to get their contributions. That's not going to stop. I don't care what you do with LeBron. I don't care what you do with Steph or Clay. The only difference now is Kyrie is going to do what he needs to do. I'm not worried. I'm not even really worried about him. To me, it's all about the X Factor guy. Last year it was Andre Iguodala, who really had a standout series. And then everybody,
Finals MVP.
Exactly. And Curry really did not play fantastic during the finals. He shot well when he had to, but overall, he was shooting like Westbrook numbers where he was like 30% from the field, but he shot so much that he was able to still get his points, but he just needed more shots to do it.
And Delly locked him down last year.
Well, he did and he didn't. I don't think that had to do with Delly all that much. I think just Steph had a cold series. For everybody that's ever had to guard him.
I'm just saying, they showed the stats. I just saw a picture the other day of, like, the one game, he was like 0 for 7 when Delly guarded him, and he was like, 6 for 12 when anyone else guarded him. So
it is exactly what Oklahoma City did for the first 5 games of this series, or 4 games of the series. You have to play physical with Steph Curry, and that's what Dellavedova does. Like, if you push him around and hit him when he comes off his screens, and it affects his shot. He's a small finesse guy. So if you're constantly hitting him, it's going to mess up his shot. And I think that's why Delly did well against him last year, because Delly's known for being rough and tough. You know what I mean? He's kind of, sometimes people hate him for it.
Right, but this year he's not going to guard him much, because I don't think he's going to be too much on the floor with Kyrie being healthy. So Delly's probably going to come in a lot of times when even Curry is off the field. So who knows?
The football field?
Sorry, did I say field?
Yeah.
All right, sorry. The basketball field.
That's better.
Thanks. But I think it's going to come down to guys like J.R. Smith and Kevin Love as far as like what kind of game they're going to have. This is Kevin Love's first taste ever of the finals. I mean, really, you can say
Kevin Love is undefeated in the playoffs in the United States. Just let that sink in.
This is very true. You can fact check this. This is absolutely true. But he's been probably one of the biggest factors of us being where we are right now, of getting him involved, because when they've lost, he wasn't involved. They've already said on the stats, once again, another true statement in the playoffs, when LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love all at least have 20 points, they have never lost in the playoffs. So if they're all getting the ball, if they're all getting their shots, because they're all superstars, they're all capable of leading their own team by themselves, let alone all three of them being on one team. So if they play like they're supposed to, and like I said, LeBron, not worried about. Kyrie, even I'm not too worried about. To me, it's does J.R. Smith keep his shot for the finals? Because if he doesn't shoot well, he's just not good. He's not a good player.
He did not shoot well last year in the finals. I looked it up earlier. He was shooting like under 30%.
And well, the thing is, everything else struggles with him too. I feel like when he does not make his shot, everything else with his game kind of flounders too. But when he has that confidence with his shot, I feel like his ball handling is a little bit better. His defense is a little bit better.
Mr. Immature over here.
I know. I smiled and then I heard the chuckle. I couldn't hold it in. So, but I mean, like I said, his handles are better. Everything about him is better when his shot's going down. So that's what I'm worried about, is that the rest of the team, once again, just like the same sad story for the Cavs, is who other than LeBron is gonna shine during the finals. That to me is going to be the big thing. I'm not worried about who's guarding who too much. To me, it's just there's too many superstars on both teams that they're going to get their numbers. It's all about making sure that guys like Draymond Green don't get involved. Make sure that Harrison Barnes is being kept in check, and guys like that. Those are the guys that I'm worried about either having a good day or a bad day.
Speaking of Draymond Green, let's say he gets into an altercation. Does the NBA pull the trigger, give him that last, flagrant, whatever it is, that he needs to be suspended for a game? Will they suspend him in the finals?
I think it needs to be very bad for them to do it. It needs to be very bad or very blatant.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be obviously blatant.
Yeah. Let's say the whole kick in the dick thing. Well, if that happened again, they'd probably have to, just because it'd be the second time. But let's say something like that happened.
At that point, you're foisting someone's hand.
Where it doesn't, you can argue. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they would do it. And to be honest with you, I don't even want to say that because I hate Draymond Green, but it would have to be blatant. I think that's what it comes down to. It would have to come down to intent at that point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm really looking for Klay Thompson in this one. I think the Warriors are going to, as much as the Cavs are going to survive, to your point, Kyle, on Kevin Love, I think the Warriors are going to survive on Klay Thompson and how well he can produce in this finals.
If he can shoot as well as he has been, especially when he's always been the other player where if Curry is not on the floor or Curry is not, shooting very well, but we all kind of agree at the beginning, I don't think they're in the finals if it's not for Klay Thompson.
I agree. Not a bit.
Yeah.
I don't think Steph's injury is going to play a role. I don't see him hobbling around or anything like that in this. I don't think there's anything like that. And at the end of the day, I think both teams are as healthy as they can be at this time of the year. They're full strength. The Cavs are going to be slightly more rested by a couple of days, but that's not going to be a big deal. There's no excuses. This is the best chance for both teams to come in here and show who's the boss, who's going to be the champ.
Who's the Tony Danza?
Yeah, exactly. Haddix, how about you? Anything that sticks out to you in this series that you I
think you have got to stop the three-pointer. I mean, the Warriors live and die by the three. The games that they get blown out is because they don't shoot well at the 3-point line. That's literally all that they do. I mean, and they do it well, so you can't blame them for it. I think you need to shut down Curry. And by shut down, I mean as best as you can. You're not going to be able to, like, get them to score single-digit points, him and Klay Thompson. So you do the best you can. You make other people beat you. If Andre Iguodala beats you, I would rather take that chance than having Steph Curry beat me because he's more likely to do it. I think you got to stop the three ball, and like you guys are both saying, the Cavs need to show up. It can't be just LeBron. If the Cavs show up and everyone plays good basketball, it doesn't even need to be great. No one needs to score 50 points. But if everyone shows up, plays good basketball, they shut down the three, I think they win. That's all that the Warriors have is a three ball. And it's worked phenomenally. I mean, small ball, shooting the three. That's all they do.
Well, the other fatal thing about playing against a team that's very good with a three, I mean, the Cavs have been amazing at, they're shooting threes in the playoffs either, but the last thing you really want to do, unless you're feeling comfortable with it, you don't want to go on a 3-point shootout with the Warriors.
So, no, you don't. No. Not as even as historic as the Cavs have, had their games in this playoff series. I agree completely. You don't want to get in a 3-point shootout with them.
But they were making all those threes because they were passing the ball. They were passing up good shots for better shots, and a lot of them were at the 3-point line. So the last thing
the ball movement's been phenomenal.
Yeah. So the last thing you want to do is just chuck up threes because you're down by a lot. Like that's the last thing anyone. That's not that. Even when the Warriors were down by a little bit, like other than when Curry would just handle the ball himself. For the most part, they were throwing the ball around and making sure that before they would start chucking up threes, they were just making sure that they were picking the right shots. And they just kind of loomed around with that 5, 7, 8 point deficit. And then it's very easy to come back from an 8-point deficit with the way they shoot.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You play good defense and you take your shot, you pick and choose your shots and you don't freak out, which is something I think the Thunder started doing as they started bickering with each other. They started getting into each other's head and they started turning the ball over. And that's not going to win the game. You gotta play clean basketball, especially when they're on the road. And Kevin Love needs to show up when they're in Golden State.
Yep.
I think this game one really, if the Cavs want to win this series, they need to take game one. And I know that's probably a little dramatic, but I honestly believe like if the Cavs want any shot in this series, they need to take this first game.
I think that as long as they split, I'm okay with them not winning the first one. I do believe that they lose both in Oakland. Then I think it doesn't bode well for them for the rest of the series because it's really tough to beat the Warriors 2 games in a row, let alone being down 2 games in a series. I mean, I think only twice during both the playoffs and the regular season have the Warriors lost 2 games in a row. So, and the Cavs couldn't beat them at all during the regular season. So, yeah, you need to at least be able to split where you can and then hold home court hold your home court.
Well, and part of the reason why David Blatt was fired is likely because they couldn't beat the Warriors in the regular season.
And especially
he was fired shortly thereafter after that blowout in Cleveland. And we haven't talked about Tyronn Lue at all, but how do you guys feel about him coming into this finals matchup?
I mean, I think he's shown. You never know how much of it's coaching because a lot of people say LeBron, kind of runs the team. But I mean, I think Tyron's shown that he can coach these. I mean, he's brought out the best that this team has been at the best time that you can have it right at the end of the season. I mean, they're playing great basketball. They're actually playing great team basketball for once, which is something that we didn't have last year.
I've heard, if you believe the chatter and things like that David Blatt lost the locker room. The fact that the Cavs are playing such good team basketball could say, that could be a lot to do with, the way Lou's been running the team. And it does seem, and I don't know if he's trying hard to show it that way, but I feel like LeBron has embraced Tyronn Lue and has supported him and given him the appropriate props that I have not seen previously.
And also, I feel like Tyronn Lue's also found the working formula for Kevin Love as well. As far as what he's been needing to do, he's been much more like the Kevin Love of Minnesota, of being, you know, like the human double guy when Tyronn Lue took over. I think when it was, I'm not saying that he's not still, you know, getting his spots at the 3-point line and taking good shots, but I feel like his assists have gone up, his rebounds have gone up. They have the whole team now understands that they have players in the team that fit certain roles, and I think that at the very beginning, I don't think anyone really knew, or Kevin Love wasn't really willing to accept his role until after they got Tyronn Lue as the head coach.
So that formula that you're talking about, do you think that's like a Love Potion number 9?
Yes. Oh God, dude. You know what? If you're gonna make jokes like this, I can't help you, Kiser. Can't help you.
You don't need my help. I mean, these things do it on their own.
That's organic right there.
Ladies and gentlemen, our PNP MVP, Josh Kiser.
Thank you. As we kind of wrap, this podcast up, kind of wind things down here. We have yet to give our predictions. We gave them in the middle of the season, back in episode 7. I reviewed those earlier today, for what it's worth. Hougie, you said Warriors in 5. Haddix, you said Cavs in
classic bandwagon.
You said Cavs in 6. I said Warriors in 6, unless it was Cavs and Spurs, and I was hopeful it'd be Cavs and Spurs, and then I took the Cavs in 6. But now here we are. We've seen where they're at. What are your guys' predictions for this series?
I am still sticking with my Cavs in 6, and I think it might be twofold. One, it might be me rooting for the Cavs, because I really want them to win, obviously. And also, I think if they're going to win, it needs to be in 6. I don't know if they could win Game 7.
Yeah, I don't want to see this series go to 7 games.
Yeah, so I'm picking Cavs, and I think for them to win, it needs to be in 6 games. So I'm going with my Cavs in 6.
Wow.
Oh, guys, Warriors in 5.
You're sticking with
the Warriors in 5.
I'm stubbornly going Warriors in 5, especially if they win the first 2 at home. If they win the first 2 at home, I see the Cavs winning 1. I see the Warriors splitting back in Cleveland. So with that said, that's how I put my 5. If somehow the Cavs split, then I think it's a different story. But
this guy's making all kinds of predictions.
No, I'm still sticking. I'm still sticking with Warriors in 5. But like I said, I think if they do lose the first 2, then I'm even more confident in 5.
It's oddly enough, if you told me to pick the Warriors, I think it's Warriors in 7. Like I think this game
do too.
Goes the whole distance. It's either Warriors 7 or Cavs in 6.
To me, I look at it like this. This Cavs team from the team we talked about back at All-Star break is much different. This team is Kyrie is, back and he's completely in tune. He's got it all figured out. He's back from that injury. He's playing well. Kevin Love has seemed to work well with Tyronn Lue's team. He seems to adapt better to his role, to your point, Kyle. And Channing Frye has been a nice piece. This team is vastly different from the team that was playing at the All-Star break, and it's much, much, much different from the team that you saw in the finals last year, where I don't think the Warriors team, roster-wise, it's almost the same Warriors team that was in the finals last year. The only thing you could say is they have a year under their belts. They a great year under their belts at that. I mean, they've had a phenomenal season. They've played lights out. Steph Curry, unanimous MVP. So you can say they're a improved team from their championship team last year. But they went through a Cavs team that had Mozgov and James Jones playing 30-plus minutes with no Kevin Love, virtually no Kyrie Irving, and you had Delly and LeBron James were your 1-2 punch. I think people are going to underestimate this Cavs team, and I do think the Cavs are going to come out. I think they're going to win Game 1, and I think they're going to take this in 6. Something tells me if the Cleveland curse is ever going to be broken, it would be fitting to break it against the best team of all time, the best regular season team of all time in the NBA, with the hometown kid LeBron James leading the way, getting his redemption, and winning one for the land.
But then again, did you just say Warriors in 6 like 5 minutes, like 2 minutes ago? What is your actual prediction right now?
Cavs in 6. No, I said Warriors in 6 was my prediction at the halfway point.
I gotcha.
Here's something to add to your point about people underestimating the Cavs. Oklahoma City won a game in Oakland. We're up 3-1. Damn near should have won the game if it wasn't for Klay Thompson. And that's because they were bigger and more physical than the Warriors. Their only issue was they couldn't shoot the 3-ball. You have a Cavs team that's arguably got the same height, and Fry and Mozgov if we have to, and Tristan Thompson that the Thunder had. We have a better all-star. We have a better 3-punch than their 2-punch, and we can shoot the 3-ball. So, and this is a Thunder team that lost by 6 points in one game. I don't know what they lost the last game by. I can't remember exactly, but I mean, we're a lot better than the Thunder, and they should have beaten the Warriors in that series. So I don't know how we're such underdogs in this thing.
By the way, I know we were talking about the unanimous MVP. I know we're getting close to the end, but Haddix, I believe you said you wanted to mention something about Steph winning the MVP. I think we got a couple minutes left.
I just think it's ridiculous that he got a unanimous. I'll be honest with you. I think Kiser or you and I, or maybe you and Hougie, or all of us together have had to talk about this off the air. I honestly think you could argue the fact that he even deserved an MVP. Now, there's a lot of talk out there that it's not really an MVP award. It's just like a popularity or a best player award, which, yeah, he had the best season. But I don't think he's anywhere close to the actual MVP of the NBA, especially when they won a series in the playoffs that he didn't even play in, and they wouldn't have even beaten the Thunder without other teammates on his team. So I don't know how you're I know it's a regular season thing, but I mean, it just goes to show you, I mean, that team is perfectly fine without him.
Do you agree that he would have won it?
An actual MVP.
Do you agree he earned it last year? Or are you still on the same thing about him winning it last year?
I honestly, and this isn't my original thought. I have read this on the internet that, and I just agree with it, that LeBron James, since maybe year 2 or 3, since he's been in the NBA, is the MVP every year. Now, I understand you're not going to give an MVP award to a guy every year, but I think he's the MVP every year. He's the most valuable player. I mean, the Cavs sucked when he left. The Cavs are great now that he's back. I mean, I know they've made other changes, but Steph Curry is a great basketball player, but that team is a very good basketball team without him. So, I don't know. The argument, especially that it's unanimous, blows my mind, because I think there's an argument that he's not even an MVP, or the best MVP.
The only thing I'll argue with that is that I agree that he earned it last year, and he had an even better season this year. It's hard to, and I mean, once again, LeBron's not doing the same LeBron numbers as we're used to because he doesn't need to anymore.
But it's not.
And you're right. It's not a most valuable player award. It's a player of the year award, and maybe they just need to change the name. I do agree that if Steph Curry is on a different team, I still think the Warriors have pieces there to do well without him. However, if LeBron goes to, or like, I think the thing everyone always argues about is that if Curry goes to the 76ers, they don't make the playoffs. If LeBron goes to the 76ers, they're going to at least the Eastern Finals, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think, and that's not me being a homer, I think he was MVP when he was in Miami. I mean, he drastically changes basketball teams. Steph Curry, while he's an amazing player and a great shooter, does not drastically change a team. But that's my
Well, PMPers, let us know what you think. Reach out onto us on Twitter or Facebook. What do you think? Is Steph Curry deserving of the MVP or the unanimous MVP? As well as your predictions for this finals. We'll see. Was Hougie right? Warriors in 5, Cavs in 6. We will see. Next week, tune in as we're going to go ahead and talk some summer blockbuster movies. We're going to kind of all tell about our favorites or what movies we're upcoming, we're looking forward to, and kind of just bullshit about the blockbuster movies coming up this summer. pseudonerdpod.com for all our social media fun. From the now defunct Columbus Quest to the now defunct San Jose Lasers, they are another female women's basketball association league. I am Josh Kiser. He is Josh Haddix, and he is Kyle Hoagland, and we will see you guys next time.
Have a good Friday.
See ya.